Disowned and banned for 20 years, my family reappeared to demand my $50 million fortune. They didn't know I was the secret titan of industry who already owned their future, and I was about to serve them the ultimate revenge. Before continuing, write where you are from or what time it is. My world is one of quiet, orderly infinities. It resides in the silent cosmic dance of distant galaxies, in the elegant, unyielding logic of physics. My life is measured in gravitational waves and light years, not in social calendars. My name is Dr. Evelyn Reed, and for the better part of my 65 years, I have been a student of the universe. The home I built for myself, what the tabloids would later call a mansion, is not a symbol of wealth, but a tool. It is a sanctuary nestled high in the hills, its south wing a private observatory, its domed roof sliding back with a near-silent hum to reveal the vast star-dusted canvas of the night sky. It is a peaceful, fulfilling existence, one I carefully constructed after a painful and decisive break from the world I was born into. 20 years ago, I was Evelyn Mercer, the brilliant but inconvenient daughter of the powerful Mercer family, rulers of the industrial behemoth, Mercer Dynamics. When I refused to take a seat on the board of a company I saw as a relic poisoning the planet, my older brother, Marcus, had me formally disowned. I was cast out. I took a small inheritance from my grandmother, a woman who secretly shared my love for the stars, and I disappeared. I built a new life, and in secret, I used that inheritance to build something else. A silent, invisible empire built not on exploitation, but on innovation. I became a venture philanthropist, seeding the future. My greatest success was a small solar company called Solara Innovations, run by a brilliant engineer named Maya Chen. A company that was 2 decades later making Mercer Dynamics obsolete. My family was a ghost from a past life, or so I thought. The breach came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in my study reviewing spectral analysis data when my head of security, Arthur, buzzed the intercom. His voice was calm, but I detected an undercurrent of tension. "Dr. Reed," he said, "you have visitors at the front gate. They do not have an appointment." I frowned. Unannounced visitors were a rarity. My home was protected by a long, winding road and a formidable gate. "Who is it, Arthur?" There was a slight pause. The static on the line felt suddenly cold. "They say they are your family, ma'am. A Mr. Marcus Mercer, a Mrs. Chloe Croft, and a Mr. Julian Croft." The name struck me like a physical blow. Mercer. A name I had not spoken in 2 decades. It felt like re-entry, the sudden, violent friction of an old world I had jettisoned long ago. My first instinct was to say, "Tell them to leave," to deny their existence as they had denied mine. But curiosity, the driving force of my entire life, got the better of me. What could possibly have driven them here, to my doorstep, after 20 years of absolute, deafening silence? I knew it wasn't a social call. The Mercers did nothing without a clear, self-serving agenda. "Let them in, Arthur," I said, my voice betraying none of the sudden turmoil in my heart. "Escort them to the Grand Library. I will meet them there." I took a moment to compose myself. I saw my reflection in the dark screen of my monitor, a 65-year-old woman with streaks of gray in her hair, her face lined with the quiet focus of a life spent in study, not in boardrooms. I was not the fiery, emotional young woman they had cast out. I was a scientist. I smoothed the front of my simple black dress and walked to the library. They were already there, standing awkwardly in the center of the room, looking utterly out of place. Ghosts. Older, more tired versions of the people I remembered. Marcus, my brother, was still a bull of a man, his expensive suit looking too tight, his face ruddy with ill-concealed anxiety. Chloe, my younger sister, looked frail and desperate. Her socialite smile was stretched thin across a face filled with fear, and with them, a young man I didn't recognize. He was in his late 20s, with his mother's looks and his uncle's arrogant sneer. This had to be Julian, Chloe's son, the heir apparent to their crumbling kingdom. They looked at me, and I could see the shock. They had expected, I think, to find a withered, eccentric spinster. They did not expect the calm, poised woman who now stood before them. Chloe was the first to move, rushing forward, her arms outstretched, her face a carefully constructed mask of tearful, long-lost affection. "Evelyn. Oh, Evelyn, look at you. I can't believe it's really you." Her embrace was brief and brittle, the hug of a stranger. Her expensive perfume was a clawing, unwelcome scent in the clean, paper-scented air of my library. I did not return the hug. I simply stood, a still, quiet island in her manufactured storm, and waited for it to pass. "We've missed you so much," she whispered, dabbing at her perfectly dry eyes. "Not a day has gone by." "Clarence," I said, my voice calm and even, cutting through her performance. I looked past her to my brother, who stood by the fireplace, his arms crossed. "You've come a long way. To what do I owe the honor?" My brother's jaw tightened. He was a man accustomed to being in charge. But before he could speak, Chloe launched into her real appeal. "We were wrong, Evelyn. We were all just so hurt when you turned your back on the family, on Daddy's legacy. But pride is a terrible thing. It's kept us apart for too long. And things have changed. We need you. We need to be a family again." It was a masterful performance. She was attempting to rewrite history, to cast me as the one who had turned my back. I gently but firmly pulled my hand from hers. The family, as I recall, made its position quite clear 20 years ago, I said. "The ties were not strained, Chloe. They were severed. By you and by him." That was when my brother's patience finally snapped. "Enough of this nonsense," he growled, his voice the same gravelly, impatient baritone I remembered. "We're not here to cry over old wounds. We're here because we have a problem." He began to pace, the movements of a caged animal. He spoke of changing markets and predatory environmental regulations, a litany of unfairnesses. Finally, he stopped and looked at me, his eyes hard. "The company is on the brink of collapse," he said, the words a blunt, ugly admission. "The banks have called in our loans. We are facing bankruptcy, not just the company, us. Personally, we are ruined." Chloe began to weep, this time with genuine, terrified tears. And then Marcus delivered the true purpose of their visit, the demand. "We need a bailout, Evelyn," he said, his voice dropping, not with humility, but with the unshakable certainty of a man collecting a debt. "We need $50 million to stabilize the company, and another 10 to secure the family's personal assets. It is your duty to provide it." I stared at him, the sheer, breathtaking audacity of it. "You are a Mercer," he continued, his voice rising. "That money you've been playing with? That seed money from grandmother? That was Mercer money by right. Everything you have built belongs to this family, and we have come to collect." The young man, Julian, stepped forward, placing a sleek leather briefcase on my antique desk. He opened it, but it wasn't full of cash. It was full of papers. He slid one across the polished wood toward me. It was a wire transfer agreement, already filled out. "And Evelyn," he said, his voice smooth and cold, "legally she's right. Grandmother's bequest was intended for the betterment of the family. Your projects were a breach of that trust. We've been very generous not to pursue this until now." He tapped the paper. "Just sign. $50 million plus the 10, And we can let this all go away. We can be a family again. They were a pack of wolves, convinced they had their prey cornered. I let the silence stretch. My heart, which had been pounding, settled into a slow, steady, ice-cold rhythm. My scientific mind took over, assessing the situation not as a family drama, but as a hostile takeover. I looked at each of them in turn. At Chloe, terrified of losing her social standing. At Julian, so steeped in entitlement, he saw no moral problem with this shakedown. And at Marcus, so blinded by arrogance, he genuinely believed he was in the right. When I finally spoke, my voice was not the voice of the young woman they had cast out. It was the voice of Dr. Evelyn Reed. "Let me see if I understand," I began, my voice as precise as a lecturer. "For 20 years, you have treated me as if I were dead. I have been excluded from every holiday, every wedding, every funeral. During the time, you, Marcus, ran our father's company into the ground. You refused to innovate. You clung to a business model as outdated as your own pride. And now, having driven the family legacy off a cliff, you appear at my door. Not with an apology, but with a demand." I took a slow, deliberate step toward him. "You speak of my duty. You speak of what is yours by right. Let me be perfectly, unequivocally clear. You have no rights here. This house, this life, it is mine. You severed all ties. You cannot reappear and pretend they still exist simply because you are desperate." I looked directly into my brother's eyes. "The answer is no. I will not give you one single penny." For a moment, no one spoke. They simply stared, their minds unable to process a reality where I was not a compliant resource to be plundered. Marcus's face turned a mottled, ugly shade of red. "You'll regret this," he snarled, taking a menacing step toward me. For a second, I was 20 again, and afraid of him. But it passed. I turned my head and gave a short, sharp nod to Arthur, who had been standing silently by the library doors. "Arthur," I said, "our guests are leaving." "This isn't over!" Marcus bellowed as Arthur stepped forward. Julian, the young lawyer, calmly closed his briefcase. He pulled a business card from his pocket and placed it on the desk. "You've just made a very powerful enemy, Aunt Evelyn," he said, the honorific dripping with sarcasm. "You'll be hearing from my office." They were gone, but they had left a declaration of war. He wasn't lying. He wasn't lying. By the next morning, my bank accounts were frozen. The attack was faster and more brutal than I could have imagined. I found out when I tried to transfer funds for my observatory's monthly payroll. The transaction was simply, coldly, rejected. "Access denied." A shiver of violation ran down my spine. This wasn't just an inconvenience. It was a siege. My staff, the astronomers and technicians who were my real family, depended on me. I picked up the secure line to my private banker in Zurich. "Hans, what is this?" I kept my voice level. "My accounts are locked." Hans sounded genuinely distressed. "Dr. Reed, a lien was placed against all your liquid assets this morning. A court order, filed out of the district court here. It's from a Mercer Dynamics." "On what grounds?" "Breach of fiduciary duty. Misappropriation of a family trust. Dr. Reed, the filing is aggressive. They've frozen everything pending an emergency hearing." They weren't just asking for money. They were choking off my oxygen. I felt a flash of real panic. This was my money, built from my grandmother's seed. How could they touch it? "They can't win this, Hans," I said. "They don't need to win, Dr. Reed," he replied grimly. "They just need to stall. A freeze like this could take months, even years to untangle. They're betting you can't survive that long." Microclock. Payroll was in 48 hours. I hung up, the quiet of my study suddenly feeling like a cage. My mind raced. This was a legal and financial attack I was not equipped to fight. I was a scientist. I needed a different kind of warrior. I picked up my phone and made the most important call of my life. She answered on the second ring, her voice crisp and energetic. Maya? Evelyn, are you watching the launch? The new solar array just deployed. It's beautiful. Maya Chen, the brilliant, fierce CEO of Solara Innovations, my protege, the woman I had anonymously funded from a garage startup to a global titan. She was the closest thing I had to a daughter. Maya, I said, my voice tight. They're here. The cheerfulness vanished from her voice. Who's here, Evelyn? The ghosts, my former family, Marcus and Chloe. They came to the house. They demanded $50 million. What? Maya's voice was a low growl. I refused. And now, Maya, they've frozen my accounts. All of them. They filed a lawsuit. They're trying to choke me out. For a moment, there was only silence. Then Maya spoke. And it was not my protege. It was the CEO. This is an attack on a board member. My board member. This is an act of industrial war, Evelyn. Send me every piece of paper you have. I'm mobilizing legal. Maya, this is my personal fight. No, she cut me off, her voice like steel. They're not attacking Evelyn Reed, the recluse. They're attacking ER, the anonymous founder of Solara. They just don't know it yet. They've picked a fight with a global superpower. Send me the file. I'm putting the shark on this. The shark was Benjamin Carter, Solara's chief litigator, a man legendary for dismantling corporate raiders. Relief washed over me, so potent it made me dizzy. I wasn't alone. As if on cue, Arthur buzzed the intercom. Dr. Reed, a process server is at the gate. Send him up, Arthur. A grim-faced man handed me a thick, professionally bound document. This was the lawsuit. I thanked him, closed the door, and walked to my desk, scanning the pages as I connected with Maya and Ben Carter on a secure video line. I'm reading it now, I said, my hands shaking slightly. I began to read key lines aloud, my voice hollow in the vast library. Alleged that the inheritance received from my grandmother was improperly administered. Part of a larger indivisible family trust. Use of said funds for private, erratic investments constitutes a breach of fiduciary duty. It's absurd, Ben Carter said, his face a mask of calm calculation on my screen. We can tear this apart on jurisdictional grounds alone. It's a nuisance suit. Wait, I said, my blood running cold as I turned the page. There's more. There are affidavits, personal affidavits. I read them, my voice trembling with a cold, clean rage. They were masterpieces of malicious fiction. They painted a portrait of me as a naive, emotionally unstable woman. They claimed my grandmother, their own mother, had been suffering from diminished mental capacity when she wrote her will. They are desecrating her memory, I whispered, the words catching in my throat. To steal from me. This isn't a nuisance suit, Ben, Maya said, her eyes flashing with fury. This is an assassination. They're not trying to win the case. They're trying to establish a narrative. She's right, I said, the pieces clicking into place with a horrifying logic. They're building a different kind of case. My personal line rang, startling me. It was a number I didn't recognize. I muted the video call and answered, putting it on speaker. Aunt Evelyn? The voice was smooth, confident. It was Julian, the nephew. Julian. Just got the notification on the lien. Impressive, isn't it? My firm has partners everywhere, even Zurich. What do you want? I'm a reasonable man, he said, his tone infuriatingly placid. My father, he's emotional. But I'm a pragmatist. This can all go away. The account's unlocked by end of day. The lawsuit dropped. All you have to do is sign the transfer agreement we discussed. $50 million, I said, my voice flat. And the 10, and my legal fees, of course, were at $200,000 and climbing, but consider it a family discount. Just sign, Auntie, or this gets much, much worse. You have no idea how high the waves are that are about to hit your little sanctuary. The audacity, the threat, the cold transactional cruelty. I will see you in court, Julian, I said, my voice low and dangerous. I will spend every last cent I have, and the full resources of allies you can't even begin to imagine, to see you and your father ruined. You have declared war on the wrong woman. I slammed the phone down, my hand shaking. Maya and Ben were watching me, their expressions grim. It's time to fight back, I said. Julian's phone buzzed in my hand. A new text message from him. One line. You really don't get it, do you? We've already started phase 2. Check the morning news. I didn't have to wait for the morning. By midnight, the internet was on fire. Arthur brought me a tablet, his face grimmer than I had ever seen it. Dr. Reed, he said, his voice quiet. You need to see this. I took it. It was a notorious online gossip column, the kind that specialized in vicious high society takedowns. The headline was a masterpiece of sensationalist cruelty, splayed across a grainy, long-lens photograph of my home, making it look less like a sanctuary and more like a sinister fortress. The mad heiress of High Point, billionaire astronomer in lonely fortress as family, fears for her sanity. My heart hammered against my ribs. I read the article, my stomach churning. It was a disgusting tapestry of half-truths and outright lies, clearly fed to the journalist by a concerned family source. It painted me as a tragic, reclusive figure, a modern-day Miss Havisham who had locked herself away after being jilted by her family 20 years ago. My life's work, my passion for astrophysics, was twisted into a bizarre, obsessive delusion. Profession. Sprinkle. They'd taken the clean, beautiful logic of my life's work, the search for order in the cosmos, and twisted it into a black hole of eccentricity. The article quoted sources describing me as a woman who squandered her family's fortune on a delusional fantasy of talking to the stars. My private nature was described as severe agoraphobia and social anxiety. But the most brutal part was the direct quote from my sister, Chloe. We are so desperately worried. The family source was quoted as saying, Evelyn was always delicate. This isolation, it's not healthy. She just talks to the stars. We fear for her sanity. We're only acting out of love. We want to get her the help she needs before it's too late. They weren't just attacking my reputation. They were publicly, systematically, building a case that I was mentally incompetent. This was Exhibit A. This is a violation, I whispered, feeling the walls of my study, my sanctuary, closing in. My quiet, anonymous life was over. I was, unwillingly, a public figure, a character in a tawdry drama. The attack wasn't just on the internet. It was at my gates. Dr. Reed. Arthur's voice came over the intercom again, this time sounding strained. There are people at the main gate, reporters, 6 of them. They're shouting your name. My blood ran cold. They were here. My phone rang. This time it wasn't family. It was Dr. Jennings, the president of the university where I quietly funded 2 departments and sat on an advisory board under a different name. Dr. Reed. Evelyn, he started, his voice stiff and formal. We saw the news this morning. This publicity. It's deeply concerning. The board may need to reevaluate your position. We cannot have this kind of instability associated with the university. Instability. The word was a slap. The stake had just escalated. This wasn't just about my money. It was about my legacy, my work, my name. They were poisoning everything I had ever built. The call ended. I stood in the silence, the shouts of the reporters barely audible from a mile down the road. They thought that by dragging me into the mud, I would retreat. That I would be so shamed and so horrified by the public attention, I would give in. They had, as always, underestimated me. By making me a public figure, they had given me a platform, and I was about to use it. I initiated a secure video conference. Maya, Ben Carter, the entire senior legal team of Solara Innovations. Their faces popped up, all of them looking grim. "They've brought the fight into the open," Maya said, her voice tight with anger. "We can no longer afford to be quiet. We need to go on the offensive, Ben." Ben Carter leaned forward. "They're building a competency case. This article is the public-facing evidence. The lawsuit was the financial hook. They're trying to prove you're unfit to fight the suit. They want to get a judge to declare you incompetent so they can protect you and your assets." "So what do we do?" I asked. "We don't just respond," Ben said, a predatory glint in his eye. "We change the narrative. We don't just defend your sanity. We prove your genius. Publicly. Overwhelmingly." I looked at Maya. She understood instantly. A slow, dangerous smile spread across her face. "That new solar initiative," I said, "the plan forming. The one that's going to power the entire eastern seaboard. We were planning to announce it next quarter." "We move it up," Maya finished, her voice a low, dangerous hum. "We hold a major press conference, as soon as possible, tomorrow." "Exactly," I said. "They want to tell the world I'm a madwoman who talks to the stars? Fine. You will go on that stage, Maya, and you will show them the world I'm building among the stars." "And at that press conference," Maya said, her eyes locked on mine through the screen, "I will go off script." "I'm counting on it," I replied. The legal machinery of Solara began to move, booking the largest press auditorium in the city. The PR team worked through the night. The time for silent, dignified defense was over. It was time to fight back. Not just in the courtroom, but in the world. The quiet, reclusive scientist was about to make her public debut. Arthur buzzed me again. My heart leapt, expecting more reporters. "Ma'am," he said, his voice lower, more confused. I'm sorry to disturb you again. There's a Dr. Alistair Finch at the gate." "I don't know any Dr. Finch." "He says he's a psychiatrist, ma'am. He says he has an appointment for a court-ordered wellness check. He has a police escort." "A court-ordered wellness check. With a police escort." The words hung in the air, cold and heavy. This was an ambush, a trap. They weren't waiting for the lawsuit. They were escalating, using the tabloid article as justification to force their way in. "A police escort?" I repeated, my voice hollow. "One patrol car, ma'am. They're not aggressive, but the doctor has a document. It looks official." My mind raced. If I refused, it would be proof I was uncooperative, paranoid, unstable. Exactly what they wanted. Marcus and Julian had planned this perfectly. They were using the law as a weapon to batter down my door. "Let them in, Arthur," I said, my voice shaking slightly. "Both the doctor and the officers. Escort them to the library. And Arthur?" "Yes, ma'am." "Please, stay in the room with me." "Of course, Doctor." "Read." I stood by the fireplace, my hands clasped behind my back to hide their trembling when they entered. The two officers looked profoundly uncomfortable, their eyes wide at the sheer scale of the library. And then there was the doctor. Dr. Alistair Finch was a tall, thin man in an impeccably tailored suit with cold, appraising eyes. He carried a leather satchel. He was not a gentle, caring physician. He was a hired gun. "Dr. Reed," he said, his voice smooth, with a practiced sympathetic tone that made my skin crawl. "I'm Dr. Finch. Thank you for seeing me. I know this is unconventional." "It's an invasion, Dr. Finch," I said evenly. "By what right are you here?" He smiled, that same placid, infuriating smile, and pulled a document from his satchel. It was an emergency order, signed by a probate judge, compelling an immediate psychiatric evaluation based on the sworn affidavits of concerned family members. "Your brother and sister are deeply worried about you, Dr. Reed," he said, setting his satchel down. "This article, your isolation. They fear you're a danger to yourself." "A danger to their inheritance, you mean?" He ignored me. "The officers are just a formality," he said, gesturing to the two policemen who were trying to make themselves small by the door. "I'd like to just talk, here, in private." "Arthur stays," I said. It was non-negotiable. Dr. Finch's eye twitched, but he nodded. "As you wish. Shall we sit?" For the next 30 minutes, I was subjected to the most violating, condescending interrogation of my life. It was a minefield of loaded questions. "Do you often feel isolated up here, Dr. Reed?" "I prefer solitude, doctor. I am not isolated. My work requires focus." "Ah, yes. The work. Your family says you believe you're talking to the stars. Can you elaborate on that?" My jaw tightened. "I am an astrophysicist. I analyze radio telescope data. I look for patterns, signals. I don't talk to the stars. I listen to them. It's science. Perhaps you've heard of it." He just smiled and scribbled in his notebook. "And this observatory, a significant expense. Do you spend more time here than you do with people?" "My work is here," I said, trying to control the tremor of rage in my voice. "Do you ask a painter why he spends time in his studio? Or a banker why he's in his bank? But you don't need to work, do you? You're a woman of significant means. Or you were. Your family is concerned you're squandering your legacy on these projects. My projects, as you call them, are some of the most advanced green energy ventures on the planet. They are not delusions, doctor. They are multi-billion-dollar corporations." He just nodded, writing. "Grandiose self-perception," he murmured, just loud enough for me to hear. "Consistent with—" He was a professional. He was building their case, brick by brick, right here in my own home. Every answer I gave, he twisted. If I was calm, I was detached, emotionally blunted. If I became angry, I was erratic and unstable. It was a trap with no exit. Finally, he closed his notebook. "Well, this has been very illuminating, Dr. Reed. I believe I have what I need." "And what is that, doctor?" I asked, my voice ice. "My report, of course, for the court." He snapped his satchel shut. "You'll be hearing from them soon." He and the officers left. Arthur escorted them to the door. I stood, unmoving by the fireplace, feeling contaminated. They had taken my sanctuary and turned it into an asylum. I felt a wave of genuine, visceral fear. This was not about money. This was about my life. They were trying to legally erase me. An hour later, the other boot dropped. The process server was back. He looked almost apologetic this time. Arthur handed me the thick envelope. I didn't even need to open it to know what it was. I read the document, and for the first time in this entire ugly affair, my vision blurred. It was the petition, filed in probate court, to have me declared mentally incompetent, and to have a conservator appointed to manage my person and my estate. I read the name of the proposed conservator, the man who would be given total, absolute control over my life, my finances, my home, and my freedom. Marcus Mercer, my brother, the man who hated me most in the world. I sank into my chair, the document clutched in my hand. It was a work of profound, calculated evil. It was filled with the sworn affidavits from Marcus and Chloe. My lifelong passion for astronomy, presented as a dangerous delusion. My high-tech security, cited as extreme paranoia. My venture philanthropy, described as erratic and reckless financial behavior. Chloe's affidavit was the most cruel. She recounted stories from our childhood, twisting my youthful introversion into early signs of mental instability. She wrote with a sickening false piety that she was doing this out of love. They were using my own mind as the justification for caging me. For a long, terrifying moment, I felt a wave of helpless, suffocating panic. How could I fight this? How could I prove the sanity of a life that was, by its very nature, extraordinary? They were trying to put my very soul on trial. Then, the fear receded, and the anger returned. An anger so pure and so powerful, it burned away the last of my hesitation. They had come for my money. They had come for my reputation. And now, they had come for my freedom. This was their final, fatal miscalculation. They had not just cornered an animal. They had cornered a queen. And a queen, when her kingdom is threatened, does not abdicate. She goes to war. I picked up the phone to my legal team. Ben, they filed. It's a conservatorship petition. They're using a hired gun, a Dr. Finch. The hearing is in 1 week. The date on the petition stared up at me. 1 week. A microclock was ticking. 1 week? Ben breathed. That's fast, aggressive. It's not fast enough, I said, my voice as cold and clear as the space between stars. Our press conference is tomorrow. We are going to countersue. And we are not just going to defend this. We are going to annihilate it. The battle lines were drawn. The competency hearing was their chosen battlefield, and I would meet them there. The next day, the press conference for the Solara Innovations Solstice Initiative was a major media event. It was held in a vast, sun-drenched auditorium in the city, packed with hundreds of journalists, industry analysts, and government officials. I was not there. I watched via a secure, private video feed from the quiet of my study. Arthur stood by the door. I was a ghost in the machine of my own creation. The air in the auditorium, even through the feed, was buzzing. Solara was at the zenith of its power, and this announcement was expected to be their most ambitious yet. Maya Chen took the stage to thunderous applause. She was a vision of modern power, dressed in a sharp, minimalist suit, her presence commanding and charismatic. For the first 20 minutes, she stuck to the script. She laid out the breathtaking scope of the Solstice Initiative, a multi-billion-dollar project to build a network of orbital solar power stations that would beam clean, limitless energy down to Earth. The scale of it was audacious, world-changing. The CGI rendering of the stations, unfurling like golden flowers in the darkness of space, drew gasps from the crowd. I watched, my heart swelling with a fierce pride. This was my delusion. This was my erratic spending. Then, as she was nearing the end of her prepared remarks, Maya paused. She looked up from the teleprompter, her gaze sweeping across the sea of faces. A different, more personal, and far more intense expression settled on her face. "The Solstice Initiative," she began, her voice a little quieter now, drawing the entire room into a new, more intimate focus, "is a project built on a foundation of visionary thinking, of daring to believe in a better future. And that vision is not mine alone." The room was utterly silent. The journalists were leaning forward, their pens poised. They sensed the real story was about to begin. "For 20 years," Maya continued, her voice ringing with a fierce protective passion, "Solara Innovations has been guided, nurtured, and funded by a silent partner, a private benefactor whose intellect and integrity are the true bedrock upon which this entire company is built. My breath caught. She was doing it. This individual has always chosen to remain anonymous, Maya said, her voice rising. Not out of shame, but out of a profound humility, a belief that the work should always be more important than the individual. But recently, a vicious and cowardly attack has been launched against this person, an attack designed to smear her reputation and question her very sanity. A collective gasp went through the auditorium. The journalists were typing furiously. "You have read the lies in the tabloids," Maya declared. "You have heard the whispers of the mad heiress. I am here today to tell you the truth." She took a deep breath. She looked directly into the main camera. She was looking at me. The anonymous visionary, the scientific genius who founded this company, who has chaired our board from the shadows since its inception, is Dr. Evelyn Reed. My phone sitting on the desk beside me exploded. It wasn't a ring. It was a vibration. A storm of push notifications, email alerts, and text messages so dense it made the phone physically rattle and skate across the polished wood. Artifact: the Mad Heiress of High Point headline on my tablet, which was still open, was suddenly replaced by a dozen new breaking alerts. Forbes: the Phantom of Solara, Dr. Evelyn Reed revealed. Bloomberg: reclusive heiress is secret genius behind green tech giant. Now IT: Mercer family. Feud mad heiress or visionary CEO? The narrative had been rewritten, not in a day, in an instant. But Maya wasn't finished. "Dr. Reed is not a mad woman," she declared, her voice a powerful, ringing indictment, silencing the sudden roar of the press. "She is a celebrated astrophysicist, a brilliant scientist whose understanding of the universe allowed her to see the future in ways that smaller, more cynical minds cannot." She paused, and her face hardened. "The family that has publicly disowned her and now seeks to control her fortune by having her declared incompetent is the same family whose industrial age company, Mercer Dynamics, is collapsing under the weight of its own obsolescence." She had drawn a line in the sand. "This is not a story about a family's concern for a frail old woman," she boomed. "This is a story about a dying fossil fuel guzzling dinosaur attempting to devour the very visionary who is building the future. And I am here to tell you, and to tell them, that we will not let that happen. Solara Innovations and its full global resources stand with Dr. Evelyn Reed." The press conference ended in a pandemonium of shouted questions. Maya just smiled, waved, and walked off stage. My phone was still buzzing. I was numb. The violation of the public smear was still there, but it was now eclipsed by a new blinding light. Maya hadn't just held a shield. She had ignited a supernova. "Dr. Reed?" Arthur said, his voice awed. "That was quite something." "Yes, Arthur," I said, my voice thick. "It was." My phone rang, a real call this time. I looked at the screen. It wasn't Maya. It wasn't Ben. It was an unknown number. I answered, my heart pounding. "Aunt Evelyn?" The voice was shaky, frightened. All the smooth, cold confidence was gone. "It's Julian. Your nephew. I know who you are, Julian. I just saw the press conference. This Solara thing. Aunt Evelyn, you didn't tell us. You're her? You didn't ask," I said, my voice cold. "You demanded. You sued. You lied. You served me papers. Listen, he stammered. "This has gone too far. This is not what we thought. My mother, she's a wreck. She's seen the articles. This is bad." "Yes, Julian," I said, "it is. We need to talk. My father, Marcus, he's not taking it well, but I can fix this. I can. Can we meet? Can we—" "Just you and me? No lawyers. Before the hearing. Please." A new cold calculation entered my mind. The wolves were no longer a pack. One of them was breaking. "No, Julian," I said. "I will not meet you. I will see you at the hearing." I hung up. My secure line buzzed. It was Ben Carter. His voice was electric. "Evelyn, the entire game has changed. Their petition is now a laughingstock. The judge will have seen this. We've already won." "No," I said, looking at the competency petition still sitting on my desk. "We haven't. They haven't withdrawn." "What?" "Oh, Julian just called me. He's terrified. But he didn't say it was over. He tried to get me into a room, to talk." Ben was silent for a moment. "He was fishing, trying to get a settlement, or trying to get new evidence of you being unstable in private. They're desperate, and desperate people are dangerous." He was right. This was not over. My phone buzzed again. Another text message. This one was from Chloe. "You're ruining me. You're ruining my life. This was all Marcus. He made me do it. You have to call this off. You're destroying your sister." I stared at the message. 20 years of silence, broken by a demand, a lawsuit, a public smear, and now a pathetic self-serving plea. They weren't just cracks. The entire foundation of their attack was crumbling. They were turning on each other. The war was not over, but I had just broken their lines. Ben called back, his voice grim. "Evelyn, you were right. They're not backing down. Marcus just doubled down. He filed an emergency motion, demanding an immediate freeze on all Solara assets, claiming they are part of the disputed family trust." "He's attacking Solara?" I was stunned. "He's trying to freeze a multi-billion-dollar public company?" "It's insane," Ben Carter said over the secure line. "It's the legal equivalent of a suicide bomb. The motion will be thrown out before it's even read. But that's not the point." "The point," I said, the cold realization dawning, "is to tie my name and Solara's name to his toxic, fraudulent lawsuit. Is to scare our shareholders, to damage our stock price." "Exactly," Ben said. "He's trying to inflict maximum damage on his way down. He's not trying to win anymore. He's trying to burn. The hearing is in 3 days. He's going to use that time to create as much chaos as possible. The man is unhinged." I looked at the text message from Chloe, still glowing on my phone. This was all Marcus. "They're not a monolith," I said, thinking aloud. "Julian is terrified. Chloe is hysterical. Marcus is on a rampage. They're not a pack. They're 3 scared, scattered animals. And they're turning on each other." "So what's the play?" Ben asked. "Marcus is a lost cause," I said. "He's pure rage. But Chloe and Julian, their worlds are different. Marcus is fighting for a legacy he thinks was stolen. Chloe is fighting for her social standing. Julian is fighting for a legal career that's barely begun." "And we just nuked all 3, Maya chimed in, having joined the call. "Exactly," I said. "So let's press those specific fractures. Ben, I want you to file a motion, not against the family, against Julian Croft, Esquire, personally, with the state bar, for knowingly filing a fraudulent, malicious petition, for perjury, for conspiracy to defraud." Ben's eyes lit up with a predatory glee. "Oh, that's beautiful. That's not a lawsuit. That's a career-ending motion. He'll be facing disbarment before he's even argued his first case." "That's the leverage for Julian," I said. "Now for Chloe. Her terror is social. She's worried about her reputation. Let's give her something new to worry about." "What do you mean?" Maya asked. "My countersuit. We've been planning it. For defamation, malicious prosecution, intentional infliction of emotional distress. I want you to finalize the filing, Ben. And I want you to calculate the damages, not just to me, personally, But the potential damage to Solara's stock price from their Mad Heiress smear campaign, I want a number so large it makes their blood run cold. 500 million? Ben suggested, a shark's smile playing on his lips. More, I said. I want $1 billion, a number that makes headlines, and I want you to accidentally leak the draft of that countersuit, not to the news, but to the gossip columnist who ran the first story. Maya gasped, then burst out laughing. Evelyn, that's diabolical. You're feeding the monster that attacked you. They use that channel to paint me as mad, I said, my voice hard. I'll use it to show them I'm furious. Chloe won't hear about this from a lawyer. She'll hear about it from her friends at the country club. Let's see how supportive they are of her brother when they think she's about to be on the hook for $1 billion lawsuit. It's done, Ben said, already typing. We'll hit them from two sides, the son's career, the daughter's social survival. Marcus will be left standing alone. The next 48 hours were a blur of precise strategic strikes. First, the bar complaint. We didn't just file it. Ben had it delivered by a server to Julian at his own law firm in the middle of his office, in front of his partners. The humiliation would be catastrophic. The result was immediate. My phone rang. Julian. I let it go to voicemail. He left a message. He wasn't arrogant. He wasn't scared. He was sobbing. Artifact. The voicemail. Aunt Evelyn? Please, you can't. This is my life. My whole life. They'll disbar me. Please, I'll do anything. I'll testify. I'll withdraw the petition. Just, please don't do this. My father, he made me. He forced me. Please. I saved the message. Exhibit B. Second, the leak. The $1 billion countersuit draft found its way to the gossip columnist. The effect was nuclear. A new article dropped that evening. $1 billion bombshell. Genius. Dr. Reed sues greedy family for 1B as Mercer Empire crumbles. The story was delicious. It painted Marcus as a failed patriarch and Chloe as a grasping, desperate socialite who had betrayed her brilliant sister for cash. It even mentioned her lavish, debt-ridden lifestyle. This time, the text from Chloe was immediate. You monster. You bitch. You're destroying me. My husband is leaving me. This is all your fault. I hate you. I hate you. Artifact. The text message. Proof that her concern was a lie. Her real fear was, and always had been, money. They're broken, Maya said on our nightly call. They're at each other's throats. Marcus is isolated. The hearing tomorrow. It's a formality. No, I said, looking out at the stars, the clear, clean light of Andromeda visible in the twilight. It's not a formality. It's an execution. I felt a strange cold calm. The fear was gone. The anger was gone. All that was left was the unyielding certainty of physics. An object had been set on a trajectory. It was time to see the impact. The phone rang one more time, a number I didn't recognize. I answered. Dr. Reed? A man's voice said. He sounded tired. This is Rick Croft, Chloe's husband. I said nothing. Listen, he stammered. This is a mess. I had no idea. Chloe, she's not well. But this lawsuit, $1 billion. You can't be serious. That's not real. It's very real, Mr. Croft, I said. Look, this all went too far. But your family, can't you just talk to Marcus? Settle this? This is unseemly. Unseemly, I repeated, the word tasting like ash. Your wife and her brother tried to have me declared insane and locked away so they could steal my life's work. And this is what you find unseemly. I just... Goodbye, Mr. Croft, I said, and hung up, the final fracture. Even her husband was abandoning her. They were all running for the lifeboats, leaving Marcus alone on his sinking ship. The hearing was in 8 hours. Evelyn. Ben's voice came over the line, sharp and urgent, breaking the silence. He's not just unhinged, I don't know. He's filed another motion. It's a restraining order against you, claiming you are harassing him, and he subpoenaed your medical records. My medical records? I repeated, a cold spike of pure violation lancing through me. He can't do that. They're private. He's trying, Ben said, his voice tight. He's alleging your instability is a known medical condition and that we are the ones committing fraud by hiding it. It's a desperate, disgusting Hail Mary, Evelyn. It won't work, but it's designed to wound you, to drag your private health into a public courtroom. He's trying to make me fold, I whispered. He thinks I'll give up everything to protect my privacy. Will you? Ben asked quietly. I looked out the window of my library. The sun was rising, painting the hills in gold and rose. 20 years ago, I had run from them. I had hidden. I had built these walls to keep them out. Now they were at the door with a battering ram, threatening to expose every corner of my life. No, I said, my voice hardening. I'm done running. I'm done hiding. He wants to see my life? Let him. Let the world see it. We meet them at the hearing. We end this. The competency hearing, which was supposed to have been a quiet, procedural affair in a sleepy probate court, had become a full-blown media circus. When I stepped out of the car, my heart hammered against my ribs. A wall of cameras, of shouting reporters, surged against the police barricades. Artifact, the flashbulbs were a blinding, violent strobe light. Dr. Reed, is it true about the billion-dollar countersuit? Are you incompetent, Dr. Reed? What's next for Solara? How does it feel to destroy your own family? Vulnerability oping. For the first time in 20 years, I was in the world, and it was deafening. Arthur put a steadying hand on my elbow and guided me through the chaos. We entered the courtroom. It was packed. Marcus and Chloe were already there, at the petitioner's table. They looked broken, haunted. Chloe was pale, her eyes red and swollen, staring at the floor. Marcus looked like he hadn't slept in days. His suit rumpled, his face a mask of dull, burning rage. And then there was Julian. He wasn't at the table with them. He was sitting in the back row, alone, looking like a man attending his own funeral. He met my eyes for 1 second, a look of such profound, terrified shame, before looking away. The judge, a sharp, no-nonsense woman named Judge Kincaid, entered. She banged her gavel. I have read the briefs. I have seen the press. Frankly, I am appalled. Let's get this circus over with. Petitioner, call your first witness. Their lawyer, a slick, overconfident man who was clearly out of his depth, called Dr. Alistair Finch to the stand. Dr. Finch recounted his evaluation. He presented his report. Convert exposition to dialogue. Dr. Reed exhibits clear signs of paranoid delusion, he said, his voice oozing false concern, coupled with grandiose self-perception. She was emotionally detached, and her obsession with her work is a clear disassociation from reality. It is my medical opinion that she is a danger to herself and incapable of managing her own affairs. The lawyer smiled. Your witness, Mr. Carter. Ben, the shark. Carter stood up. He walked slowly toward the witness stand. Dr. Finch, Ben began, his voice polite. Thank you for your report. How much was your evaluation worth? We have the invoice you submitted to Mercer Dynamics, $75,000. Is that your usual rate for a wellness check? Finch stammered. I am an expert in my field. My rates are standard. I'm sure, Ben said. And in your expert opinion, you found Dr. Reed to have grandiose delusions. Is that correct? Yes. Her claims about building worlds in the stars. Ah, Ben said. Are you aware, Doctor, that Dr. Reed's delusions of grandeur are, in fact, the Solara Innovations Solstice Initiative? A multi-billion-dollar project, verified this week by every major news outlet on the planet? Or did that not come up in your evaluation? The blood drained from Dr. Finch's face. I was not aware of the specifics. You weren't aware of the facts, Ben snapped, his voice turning to ice. Did you know that Dr. Reed is one of the most respected, albeit anonymous, minds in astrophysics? Did you ask to see her work? Or did you just cash the check from the man who stood to gain her entire fortune? Objection! Their lawyer shouted. Overruled, the judge snapped. Sit down. Doctor, you may step down. You are dismissed, and I suggest you get a good lawyer. Finch scrambled from the stand. Their lawyer, sweating now, called his next witness. I call Chloe Croft. Chloe looked like she was walking to her execution. She took the stand. She tried to tell her rehearsed stories about our childhood, how I never played with other children, how I always stared at the sky. Ben waited patiently. Then he stood up for cross-examination. Mrs. Croft, he said, his voice gentle, you testified that you are here today because you are deeply worried about your sister's well-being. Is that correct? Yes, Chloe whispered. I love my sister. I'm so worried about her. I see. You're worried about her finances? Her erratic spending? Yes. She's squandering our family legacy. Your legacy? Or her money? Ben asked. He turned to the judge. Your Honor, we've submitted the respondent's financial records, but I'd like to present the petitioner's financial records. He turned to a large monitor. This, Mrs. Croft, is this your American Express statement? From last month? Artifact, the statement, with its $150,000 balance, flashed on the screen. And these are the 6 liens against your husband's properties? You aren't worried about your sister's finances, Mrs. Croft. You're desperate for them. Objection. Overruled, the judge barked. You testified you are here out of love, Ben pressed, walking closer. Then why, Mrs. Croft, did you 2 days ago send your sister this text message? He put her text on the screen. You monster. You bitch. You're destroying me. I hate you. I hate you. The courtroom was silent. Chloe stared at her own words, her face crumbling. Does that sound like love to you, Mrs. Croft? Ben asked. Chloe broke. A raw, ugly sob tore out of her. It was him, she shrieked, pointing at her brother. It was all Marcus. He made me. He made me lie. He said we'd be ruined. He... Let the record show, the judge said, her voice flat, that the petitioner is pointing at her co-petitioner, Mr. Marcus Mercer. Marcus roared, She's a liar. They're all liars. Mr. Mercer, you are out of order, the judge yelled. Ben Carter smiled. No further questions, Your Honor. Call your next witness, the judge said, rubbing her temples. I call Marcus Mercer, the trembling lawyer said. Marcus stormed to the stand. His testimony was a 10-minute tirade, a litany of insults and accusations. He called me a thief. He called Maya a corporate puppet. He called the Solara Initiative a Ponzi scheme. He called the judge biased. His performance was so filled with venom, so transparently driven by a lifetime of resentment, that it backfired completely. He did not look like a concerned brother. He looked like a bully, furious that the sister he'd always considered his inferior had so spectacularly surpassed him. When he was finished, Ben stood. Mr. Mercer, You have filed a motion to have your sister declared incompetent. You have filed a motion to seize her assets. You have filed a motion to seize the assets of a public corporation. You have filed a restraining order, and you have subpoenaed her private medical records, all on the basis that she is delusional. Is that correct? She's a thief, he spat. It's all Mercer money. It's mine. Thank you, Ben said. That's all I needed. He sat down. Their lawyer looked at his notes, then at his clients, one sobbing, the other vibrating with rage. Your Honor, the petitioner rests. Thank God. The judge muttered. Mr. Carter, your witness. We have only one, Your Honor. We call Dr. Maya Chen. Maya walked to the stand with the same calm, commanding presence she'd had at the press conference. She spoke of our 20-year partnership, my mentorship, my brilliant strategic mind. She presented the court with a detailed, audited history of my philanthropic investments, showing a pattern not of erratic behavior, but of visionary, high-risk, high-reward investments that had changed the world. She then read into the record statements from 3 Nobel laureates and 2 university presidents, all of whom attested to my brilliance, my stability, and my profound contributions to science. The judge had finally heard enough. She cut Maya off, mid-sentence. Thank you, Dr. Chen. You may step down. She looked down from her bench, her gaze settling on Marcus and Chloe with a look of utter, profound contempt. In my 20 years on this bench, she began, her voice a low, angry growl that silenced the entire courtroom, I have rarely seen a more transparently greedy and abusive petition brought before this court. You have not come here out of concern for your sister. You have come here with the despicable intention of using this court to perpetrate a financial crime. Marcus started to stand up. But, sit down, Mr. Mercer, she roared. You have wasted this court's time. You have publicly defamed a distinguished member of the scientific community, and you have done so with a callous disregard for the truth that I find frankly abhorrent. She then turned her gaze to me. For the first time, her expression softened. Dr. Reed, I am so terribly sorry that your family has subjected you to this ordeal. The world is lucky to have a mind like yours. And then, with a final decisive bang of her gavel, she delivered the verdict. This petition is dismissed with extreme prejudice. It was over. The checkmate was public. It was absolute. Marcus lunged across the table, not at me, but at his own sister. You ruined everything. Bailiff surged forward, tackling him before he could reach her, as the judge slammed her gavel down, shouting for order. The courtroom erupted into chaos. Bailiffs hauled Marcus, still screaming, back from the table, his face a mask of purple rage. You stupid weak! You ruined me! He bellowed at Chloe, who was huddled, sobbing into her chair. Julian, from the back row, just watched, his face pale and sick. He looked like a man who had just seen his entire future and his past go up in flames. Judge Kincaid's voice cut through the noise. Bailiff, remove Mr. Mercer from my courtroom, now, and Mr. Carter. I am referring this entire case to the district attorney's office for review of possible perjury and malicious prosecution, and to the state bar. She looked directly at Julian. He flinched as if struck. It was more than a victory. It was an annihilation. Ben and Maya flanked me as Arthur cleared a path. We walked out of the courtroom, back into the wall of flashing cameras. But the tone was entirely different. The feeding frenzy was gone. The questions were no longer hostile. Dr. Reed, what's next for the Solstice Initiative? An amazing victory, Dr. Reed. How does it feel? I didn't say a word. I just kept walking. I'd protected my sanctuary, but I felt no joy. only a profound, weary sense of peace. The star had collapsed. The noise was over. We were at the Blacktown car, Arthur holding the door, when a voice cried out, "Evelyn!" I turned. It was Chloe. She had run out after me, her face a crumpled, desperate mask, her expensive suit disheveled. "Evelyn, please," she begged, her voice raw. She grabbed my arm. Her grip was like a claw. "Please, you can't. The DA, the bar. You'll ruin Julian. He's my son. You'll destroy my boy." I looked at her, this stranger who shared my blood. "My son?" I said, my voice quiet. "He's a 30-year-old man, Chloe. He's a lawyer. He knew exactly what he was doing. He knew he was lying. But it was Marcus. It was all Marcus. He bullied us. He said we'd be homeless. You have to tell them. Tell them to stop." "He's your brother, Chloe," I said, my voice void of emotion. "You chose him. You chose him 20 years ago, when you cut me out of your life. And you chose him again last month, when you signed that affidavit. You stood by him. You lied for him. You were willing to lock me up and destroy my life. All for money. And you only turned on him when it backfired." I gently, firmly, removed her hand from my arm. "Actions have consequences, Chloe. You, of all people, should understand that. You are now simply living with the consequences of your choices." I got in the car. Arthur closed the door, and the sound of her renewed sobbing was cut off as if by a scalpel. We pulled away, leaving her alone on the curb, a pathetic, broken figure in the glare of the lingering media. The next day, I was not in my library. I was in a glass and steel skyscraper in the downtown offices of Solara Innovations. It was the first time I had ever been there in person. I was in Ben Carter's office, a vast corner room overlooking the city. Maya was with us. "They're ruined," Ben said, sliding a folder across his desk. "The DA is pursuing perjury charges against Marcus and Finch. The bar has suspended Julian's license pending a full investigation. Chloe's husband filed for divorce this morning. It was swift. It was total. But," Ben continued, leaning forward, "they're not punished. Not yet. The countersuit, the billion-dollar one. We can move. Now. We can take everything. We can seize Marcus's remaining assets. We can seize Chloe's. We can force the sale of their homes. We can make them pay for every lie." I was silent for a long moment. I looked at Maya. She was watching me, her expression unreadable. "And Julian?" I asked. Ben shrugged. "He's on the hook. He tried to withdraw at the last second, which the bar will see as a mitigating factor. But he filed the damn thing. He knowingly submitted false affidavits. We can end his career. For good." I thought about his terrified, sobbing voicemail. I thought about his face in the courtroom. He was a Mercer. He had their arrogance, their entitlement. But he had also, at the very end, shown a flicker of something. Shame. "No," I said quietly. Ben and Maya both looked at me, surprised. "No?" Ben repeated. "Not Julian," I said. "He's a Mercer, but he's not them. He's young. He made a terrible, greedy choice. But he's the only one who flinched." I took a deep breath. The suit is against Marcus Mercer, Chloe Croft, and Mercer Dynamics. We will bankrupt the company. We will take their personal assets. We will leave them with nothing. But we will remove Julian's name from the civil suit. The bar will do what it will. But I will not be the one to personally end him. Let's see what he does with a second chance." Maya smiled, a real warm smile. "That's generous, Evelyn." "It's not generous," I said. "It's efficient. Marcus and Chloe are the past. They're a collapsed star. He might not be. I'm building a future. Wasting energy on him is illogical." Ben smiled. that shark smile returning. I like it. It's clean. So, we proceed with the asset seizure. We'll force Mercer Dynamics into bankruptcy. It's already worthless. But what? I asked. In a bankruptcy auction, he said, his eyes gleaming, its assets will be for sale, for pennies on the dollar. I looked at Maya. She caught my meaning instantly. Their land, Maya said, her voice electric. Their factories, the old polluting ones. Exactly, I said. Ben grinned. They'll have to settle. They have no choice. And the first asset we're acquiring is Mercer Dynamics itself. 6 months later, I was not in my observatory. I was standing on a vast, muddy plot of land, the air smelling of damp earth and diesel. I was wearing a hard hat and steel-toed boots. The roar of bulldozers filled the air. Cinematic beat. Behind me, the last rusted skeleton of the main Mercer Dynamics factory was being torn down. Its M logo, once a symbol of industrial power, crashing to the earth in a cloud of red dust. Maya Chen, also in a hard hat, stood beside me, unrolling a set of blueprints on the hood of a truck. Artifact, the blueprint. It's a perfect site, she said, tapping the paper. The river access is good for cooling. The state is giving us massive tax credits for remediating the land. The new Solara Innovations Research and Development Facility will be beautiful right here. I smiled. It was the first genuine, uncomplicated smile I'd had in a year. Poetic, isn't it? The past is being remediated. We're building the future. A news van was parked across the street, a respectful distance away. The narrative had changed so completely that they were now part of my landscape. A young reporter shouted, Dr. Reed, any comment on the Mercer Park dedication? We're cleaning up the past, I called back, and planting a new garden. The consequences had been total. The countersuit, which we'd pursued for a symbolic $1 after seizing their assets, was a public document. The settlement had forced Marcus and Chloe to liquidate everything. Arthur, my security chief, had quietly given me a small folded newspaper clipping from the society pages a week earlier. Artifact, the clipping. It was a tiny notice. Chloe Croft's estate auction. It listed in small print her jewelry, her art, her furniture. Her social world had evaporated. She was a ghost. Marcus, I'd heard, was living in a small rented condo, broken and consumed by his own rage, facing criminal perjury charges. The war was over. The victory was absolute. Dr. Reed? I turned. A young man was walking toward us, hesitant, his hands in the pockets of a simple polo shirt. The sharp, arrogant lawyer was gone. This man looked tired and younger. It was Julian. Maya tensed beside me, a protective warning look on her face. I put a hand on her arm. It's all right, Maya. He stopped a few feet away, not making eye contact, looking at the blueprints on the hood of our truck. Aunt Evelyn, he said. His voice was quiet. I saw the news about the facility. I wanted to... He trailed off, struggling for words. I wanted to say, thank you. For what, Julian? For not, the civil suit. You took my name off it. He finally met my eyes. The shame was still there, but it was mixed with something else. Confusion. You destroyed them. You destroyed my father. You could have destroyed me. Why didn't you? What you do now, Julian, defines you, I said, my voice not unkind. Not what he did, not even what you did. You have a second chance. The bar suspended you for a year. What you do when you get back, that will be your answer. He nodded a sharp, jerky motion. I know. I'm working as a paralegal for a small environmental law firm. The one that's, well, The one that's handling the park dedication for you. Pro bono. I looked at him, really looked at him. The Mercer entitlement was gone, burned away by the humiliation. What was left was just a man, trying to find his footing on a new, unfamiliar earth. That's a start, Julian, I said. He nodded again, then turned and walked away. A chance at redemption. Maybe. The universe is full of possibilities. That night, I was back where I belonged. The final scene of this long, painful drama took place not in a courtroom or on a construction site, but in the quiet, star-dusted darkness of my observatory. I was alone, as I so often was. But I was not lonely. I was at the eyepiece of my main telescope, my gaze fixed on the faint, beautiful light of the Andromeda Galaxy, a river of stars 2.5 million light-years away. My secure phone buzzed softly on the desk beside me. It was Maya. "It's done," she said, her voice warm and final. "The last of the bankruptcy filings were signed today. Mercer Dynamics officially no longer exists. They won't ever bother you again." "Thank you, Maya," I said, my voice filled with a gratitude that went far beyond legal victories. "Thank you for everything." "You don't have to thank me, Evelyn," she replied softly. "You built the shield that protected you. I just held it up." We said our goodbyes, and I ended the call. I was left once again in the profound, beautiful silence of my sanctuary, alone with the vast, orderly, and infinite universe. I returned my gaze to the heavens. I had protected the universe I had built for myself, and it was, and always would be, more than enough. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from, or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.